Harris tweed. And when using thicker fabrics, you might not necessarily want to assemble them like in the same manner that you would for quilting cottons, for instance, pressing kind of like double fold bias tape, so 4 layers of fabric. So here's a method that you can use for some of your thicker fabrics like Harris tweeds or wool. So I'm going to jump over to the side camera and show you that demonstration now. Okay, so the materials that you'll need for this method is your strap fabric, so whatever substrate that is. I'm using quilting cotton for this demonstration just because it's easiest, and you'll need some sort of, this is optional, but some sort of insert, either nylon strapping. You can also use a bit of foam interfacing, batting, fleece, whatever you'd like if you decide to go with that optional insert. So I'm actually using nylon for mine. When I cut my nylon, I like to burn the edges just to seal them so that I'm working with it. It doesn't start coming unraveled, which it's already starting to do. So if you're using nylon strapping, you can burn it. If you're using cotton or you're not sure what the material is, I would just hold off on that just because you don't want to light anything on fire accidentally, but the nylon will melt when burned. Okay, so I've got one fully finished strap over here. I've got it all top stitched. There's nylon on the inside, and the nylon just gives it a little bit of extra stability. But again, if your fabric is on the thicker side and you feel that the insert will make everything a little bit too thick for your liking, you can go ahead and skip that insert. So let me show you how to assemble these. So first, I've got my strap fabric cut out. I've just got a shorter piece, but you'll want to just measure your strap fabric the length that you would like your finished strap to be. If you're making it an adjustable strap, you'll want it to be at least 42 inches long, longer if you prefer to have a really long adjustable strap. So how to decide how wide to cut this. So my nylon strapping, if you're using an insert, my nylon strapping is 1 inch wide, which is the size that I would like my finished strap to be. So I went ahead and cut my strap fabric times 2. So 1 inch times 2 is 2 inches. My seam allowance is going to be 1/4 inch, so I need to add 1/4 inch times 2, which is 1/2 inch, and then I added a little bit of extra so that I could easily get the strapping inside, so an extra 1/4 inch. So I cut this in total 2 3/4 inch wide. All right, so to sew this, I'm going to sew right sides together by lining up the long edges, and again, that's going to be 1/4 inch seam allowance, and I've got a piece that I've already sewn right here. Let's get this out of the way. So I'm not sure if you can see that on your screen, but I used the yellow thread to sew this right sides together. Again, that's 1/4 inch seam allowance. And then I'm going to actually use a bodkin to thread this nylon strapping, or if you're using the foam or fleece, you can use this same method. So this is a bodkin, and I'm just going to go ahead and clamp that onto one end of the strapping. And there's a little metal ring, which I'm going to push down over here. So I'm going to first turn this right side out, and I'm going to use the fast turn turning tool, and you may have a different turning tool in your stash, but the fast turn tool is a tube and a little metal wire, and there's a corkscrew on this end. I'll hold it over the fabric so you can see. So that's the little metal corkscrew that will be pulling the fabric right side out. So first I'm going to go ahead and insert the metal tube through the opening in the fabric, and then just push the fabric down on the tube. So next, this metal corkscrew goes through the fast turn tube, and I'm going to hook that metal corkscrew on one end of the fabric just to grab onto it. So I usually like to kind of aim near my stitches over here, and then I'm going to twist it so the corkscrew comes out the fabric. The corkscrew is what pulls everything through the tube, and I lost my corkscrew. Let me push it through again. Okay. All right, so as you can see, it easily pulls everything right side out. And once the fabric is pulled through, I'm just going to go ahead and twist the corkscrew to release it. And then I'm going to go ahead and press the fabric before I insert that nylon strapping. So you have a couple options. You can either press the seam to one side, or you can press the seam so that it's centered kind of like on the back side of the strap. So that's what I'm going to do. Either method is fine. There's not one that's better than the other, just your personal preference. Okay, so now that that's pressed, I'm going to go ahead and take the bodkin. The metal end is going to go through one end of the fabric. And then the purpose of the bodkin is you just kind of push the fabric down and it allows you to hang on to the strapping and pull it through. Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention also that when I cut that nylon strapping, I cut it maybe 1.5 inches to 2 inches shorter than the fabric that I used for the strap, just so that I could cut it, leave it clear of the seam allowance so that it doesn't add a lot of unnecessary bulk. So depending on how you're assembling the strap, you can either leave the edges raw, or you can press the edges toward the inside, and I just use my fingers to kind of push them to the inside and then give the fabric a good press before top stitching. So again, this is what the fully finished strap looks like. I used 1/8 of an inch seam allowance to top stitch, and then as you can see from the back side, there's my seam. So the nylon strapping is fully enclosed, and again, you can use foam interfacing, fleece, batting, or no insert at all for your straps. All right, so I hope you enjoyed that demonstration. Hopefully that answered the question about how to make straps with thicker fabrics. So I have another question for you. Let me know in the comments. Do you usually use hardware or rivets on your straps, or do you prefer just a plainer strap, whatever bag you're making? I like using hardware because I feel like it gives a more upscale look to a handmade bag. Depending on how I'm feeling or the design of the bag, I'll add rivets on occasion, but hardware always makes a bag, in my opinion, look a little bit nicer. So